Right, this is a 5 or 10 minute quickie, if you'll pardon the expression. Um, Spinoza talks about the nature of God all over the Ethics, and his other works as well, particularly the Theological-Political Treatise. And people read his works and think, oh, isn't that nice? He's talking about God, and isn't God so nice and wonderful? And Spinoza loves God, and we all love God, and yada yada yada. It's not like that at all. Spinoza's account of God is kind of a two-edged sword. On the one hand, he's talking about God as a power of manifestation. That's the best way it can be explained. And for people who are familiar with the ethics, then Proposition 11 in Part 1 sort of says that. It says that the more something has existence, the more power it has for existence. I've not expressed that very well, but basically, the more reality something has, the more it has a power for existence. And then in the Theological-Political Treatise, in chapter 16, which I dealt with reasonably extensively in Big Fish Eat Small Fish, a podcast about 2 prior to this. He says that God gives everything, or nature, and remember that for Spinoza, God and nature are the same thing. Nature is also, nature with a capital N, nature is also this power of manifestation. And he says that nature, or God, gives every creature and everything a sovereign natural right. It endows it with certain powers. So big muscly people have a sovereign natural right to push around small weedy people. Big beasts with teeth and claws have a sovereign natural right to rip to bits those creatures that don't have those things. And Spinoza's very, very, very objective about all of this. I'm giving it a kind of judgmental flavour, which is unfair of me in a sense. He's just saying, well, this is the way it is. Everything is given a certain power, and some things can destroy and exploit other things, and other things, because they're weak and puny, are exploited. He doesn't actually give it the judgmental tone that I'm giving it, to be fair to him. But, I like the judgmental tone. Makes it a bit more interesting. So, I want to just talk about Proposition 37 in Part 4 of his Ethics, which is actually quite a proposition. When you read it, it looks kind of boring. The words come across as being fairly boring, but when you read and understand what he's saying, it's anything but boring. So I'm not going to read all of it because it goes on for probably, 400 or 500 words. But I'm just going to read the 100 words or 50 words or whatever it is the actual proposition itself, rather than all the notes and things. So he says, the good which every man who pursues virtue aims at for himself. So the good, what is the good? Well, Spinoza says that the good is anything that aids your understanding, or allows you to understand. So the good, which is understanding, which every man who pursues virtue for Spinoza is synonymous with power. So understanding should give us power. The good which every man who pursues virtue aims at for himself, and of course we aim at it for ourselves, he will also desire for the rest of mankind. Well, why the hell should you even give a damn about the rest of mankind? If you are happy to increase your understanding about the nature of life, i.e. that everything is driven by the desire to survive, and in order to do that, everything will rip everything else to bits if it has to carry on with that process. And then, very specifically to human behavior, when you see someone boasting or bragging, they're pissing on you. They're actually just trying to establish their power over you. And everybody does this. People do this to each other all the time. I've talked about that in other podcasts. Which is why these days I have no problem mixing with even the most banal and pathetic people. None at all. I can see what's going on. It used to be a cause of endless pain for me, not anymore. It's just like a machine ticking away. Anyway, so yeah, I've digressed a little bit. So the good, which is understanding, which every man who pursues virtue, in other words power, aims at for himself, he will also desire for the rest of mankind. Well, why the hell desire it for the rest of mankind? Well, there's a very good reason why you should desire it for the rest of mankind, and Spinoza goes on to say, and all the more as he acquires a greater knowledge of God. And this sounds sort of biblical and all holy-roly and nice and new agey. Nothing of the sort. So what is this knowledge of God that he's talking about? Well, he's really talking about the fact that God endows, or nature endows, every creature with an ability to possibly outsmart, destroy, consume, whatever every other creature, and human beings are no different. So one person might have the ability to outsmart people out of their money. He's more cunning, more devious. Yeah, the very charming man who's selling you that second-hand car that will fall to bits when you're 100 yards down the road, and so on. These are the gifts and skills that this person has been endowed with by nature. Just the same as the guy who's a total brute and will happily go around killing people. Yeah, this is how nature has created this person, or God, if you want to use that word. And so Spinoza is saying the more we understand the nature of God, or nature, the more we would want to protect ourselves from it. And in fact, in proposition, I think it's 18, yes, proposition 18 in part 5 of the Ethics, Spinoza goes on to say that God is the cause of our suffering. But actually, by understanding how that suffering worked, we can derive some pleasure from the actual understanding itself. Again, a strange thing to say, but turns out it's true. So I'll go through this proposition again. The good, which is the understanding, which every man who pursues virtue or power aims for himself, he will also desire for the rest of mankind. We desire it for the rest of mankind because we don't want to be surrounded by brutes and idiots who are going to kill us if we make a mistake at a traffic junction, or are going to find some way to defraud us. We don't want to live with people like that. So we would like if everybody else could use a certain amount of reason and understand that if human beings work together, they are stronger than if they are working against each other, which is the natural mode of operation endowed upon us by God. God and nature would have us tearing each other's throats out for the least little offence. That's the way that the natural thing is set up, but we seem to have been endowed with reason. And because of that, it means that we can, through a state and laws, moderate our behaviour. So we don't rip each other's throat out at a traffic junction. Not unless you've had a particularly bad day. So this proposition 37 goes on. It's, as I say, it's very long. Every sentence is, in my opinion, a gem. So, how to summarise this? I told you it'd be a 10-minute quickie. The best way to summarise this is, as we understand our own nature and the nature of the world more, and particularly, as Spinoza would say, the nature of God. God is this power of manifestation, and how it works and how it manifests. So we would come to the conclusion that we need each other to essentially safeguard ourselves from this innate nature that we have been given, the sovereign natural right, as Spinoza calls it. And so we can build a state, something that is larger than each of us individually, so that no individual can destroy or exploit another individual without some threat of some kind of punishment. And that's why we have laws and all those kind of things. So this idea that what you understand for yourself, you would want other people to understand, isn't some act of, some great act of charity or kindness. It's survival. You don't want to be surrounded by morons. We seem to be failing in that respect, but that's the idea. And in fact, there's a very good video on YouTube of some guy, Stephen Nadler, who's a Spinoza man, talking about this very thing. And if I can find it, I'll put the link below. Anyway, there's the 10-minute quickie.